between the veins all goes yellow and the veins stay a very dark green. That generally is a magnesium deficiency. You'll see it on bougainvillea. First, I think, probably is the one that requires it most, but that's one of the ones you can be sure you got to keep an eye on. Sulfur is for things like rhododendron, things that require acid. I wouldn't apply sulfur to my plants particularly because you can reach acidity by adjusting your soil ratios easier than you can do it by adding sulfur. Calcium is very important. Anybody grow tomatoes?
Yeah.
Okay. When you pick your tomato and the bottom of the blossom is black, called blossom end rot, that's a maybe that it's lacking. It's calcium. Blossom end rot. But it's also good for cell strength. In the micronutrients, and they're called micronutrients because they could not get very much into a fertilizer mix. If you look at, everybody buys, I imagine, soluble fertilizers like 20-20-20. If you look at 20-20-20, all of these nutrients will be less than 1% of that mix because you cannot physically manufacture it any different unless you make what we call a flowable product, which there's a very few flowables out there. But again, you want to look at the manganese, boron, copper. Those are iron for getting dark green, and basically those are what you want to know. Is that NPK? N is for growth, P is for root production and flowers, and K is for energy and stalk strength. Nutrients come in about 3 basic ways. You can get granular fertilizer like you use on your lawn. You put on with a spreader, but that's not very good for your plants in bonsai because you can't get it on in even, but also that if you tried to spread it all over the soil, it would be too strong.
Yeah.
So the one that we use most frequently is the 20-20-20 mixes or the 10-15-5s. Now, if you put a plant in, a new planting like the one that yes, put in today, you don't want to fertilize it with 20-20-20. You want to go something that is high in P, 5, 25, 10. Then you don't want a lot of top growth initially. So you use your fertilizers to balance the needs of the plant.
So let me ask you a question. 2020, as I'm doing 30-10-10.
Yeah.
No.
Okay, 30-10-10 is a little high on nitrogen, but it's, it depends what your plant needs. So if you need a lot of top growth, then you're going to go a little higher than on the end instead of 20-20-20.
By the way, 30-10-10. So 30 is for the root, right?
No,
for tops.
Ground.
Micronutrients.
Yes.
A few years ago, we did.
Micronutrients. The micronutrients that are chelated
Yes.
do not get bound up in the soil like the sulfates and the oxides.
Okay.
And that means,
They go right through.
They go well. They
what are they used?
they get bound up. They get attracted to the soil particles and they're unavailable to the tree.
So the chelated material
Yeah, it's by far the superior.
is better because of availability to the root system.
Yeah.
Okay.
What's in the bath salts? What is that?
Which is?
In the bath salt.
Okay. It is I don't know if it's a sulfate.
Because it was
Okay. We all have our own regime on that one too. But I start to fertilizer within 5 to 10 days after I pull them out of dormancy in the spring. but I put a cut, like I'll split the, instead of putting on full strength that I would normally mix, I will mix it a half strength. I mean, you gotta go by the recommendations on the package for your first mixture, and then cut it in half. And then I will start with that in the spring, probably with a low number of nitrogen and a high number of P, up until sometime in June. And I creep up on the amount of the mixture, the strength, and also on the date between. They start out as probably 2 weeks apart. And then as we get into the hotter, drier, and we want to put up the nitrogen in June, I might go full strength every 10 days, every week, depending on what it's like watering. You know, somebody says, how often do you water? Well, it depends on the day. I mean, there's lots of times in the summer, last summer particularly, twice a day. At least twice a day you had to water.
So may I add something? So fertilizer, because it's water, it penetrates. So the next 2 hours later on, you go there with a sprinkler of water, and that washes off. So I found that I usually fertilize once a week, but I usually use throughout almost the summer, unless it's July and August. Maybe I don't, but usually I go half a strength, but I fertilize once a week. And with the pomegranates, they love it. And the cedars too.
In the plants.
Yeah.
And it will be absorbed within 24 hours into the plant. Plant just sucks it all in. But I like to do like you were showing. I like to, in the summer, I like to soak my plants. Yeah. Any other questions?
Balance and like base for the tree. So other than that, well, the better function, excuse me, let me rephrase that. So the basically function is to give physical strength and, you know, just presence in the soil. So for example, those turfs and items like this, so that's their function, and that's why we put them in the soil. But you don't have to have every single one of them. That's what I'm trying to say. When the, like, for example, chicken granite has only one function. It's sort of like the physical space, because soil really is like 50%. I mean, when you call soil, you have to count 50% of the solids, let's say 25% of the water, and 25% of air. That's what really soil is. But we always see the physical shape of the soil. So the purpose of those, although they look different, they pretty much have like one purpose, is the physical space holder. The better ones hold physical shape and also will absorb water and moisture and air. So they have dual purpose, or maybe even 3 different purposes. Some of them are better absorbing than others. So those are the ones that we like turfs, for example. It has physical shape, but also absorbs the water, and it's neutral, pH neutral. So as long as you understand that you know the manure, it doesn't really hold physical shape very much, but it absorbs moisture and also gives the nutrients. But it doesn't have to be manure. This could be also peat moss or the cocoa fiber. So the 3, you know, different properties. So like when I mix soil, I don't have a pre-mixed soil in my, like when I need to repot something in emergency, I have to go and scramble and get my ingredients together. But I don't keep them together, because what happens, they just kind of mush together and you have fines on the bottom. I try to sift, although it's very labor intensive. You know, so when I get a manure or potting soil, I like using potting soil or the topsoil. Sometimes the spring comes so early that you kind of rush and you realize that you have no more topsoil, and by the time the hardware store opens, it's kind of late in the season. So that's another issue. But anyway, I try to sift the topsoil when it's still moist. So then you get those kind of neat looking granules. And then you know, experts say to have it, like what happens when I sift it, it kind of dries and it keeps that shape at that moment. So then when I mix the soil, it's not compounded. So trees already have, like what happens, you get that air in between those particles, and when the new roots grow, they have place to go. Otherwise, if you put this in, like Luigi was saying, you find that sometimes that organic soil flows to the top and doesn't get wet. So then you have this mush on top of your planting. So to avoid that, you can just submerge your pot to the level of the rim, like the rim of the pot. So the soil doesn't flow away. You just put this much and then let it soak. So therefore, we don't want to confuse you guys that you have to have every single item of those that we showed you. The idea is that I asked Arthur Skolnick when he was doing presentation here, and I thought it was a brilliant question, but he, you know, asked him what type of soil you use. What's your best option for soil? And he goes, there's no such thing. You know, basically you use what's available in your region and what's, you know, like also cheapest.
And what
Together to achieve what the plants need. And it doesn't have to be, we just showed you examples what you can use, but they don't have to be. I mean, you think it'll be a lot of granite in Canada, but other than chicken grit, that decomposed granite is hard to come by in here. And that'll be very expensive. I found some in old aquarium, like where we acquire those things is another funny thing. Because when you ask people where you get this, and for example, I got dolomite, which is, Leroy mentioned it, it's layers of soil. You want to start with something that's thicker on the bottom. An example of this, like, well, this is quite heavy, but, you know, if you have a big tree, you might want to use something this size, like even bigger. You put in a big, like, you know, some pots are the size of a baby tub. So you want to use something big on the bottom, and then maybe some medium in the middle and some fine on top. On the other hand, if you have very small trees, you want to use something fine. So there's definition between those things. If you want a tree that you want to grow very fast, you have different type of soil. So it's a big subject. It doesn't have to be very confusing. I'm trying to make it simple, but unfortunately, the fun part of growing bonsai is a lot of learning.
As the roots go through them, they get damaged and they split. And they make more roots and more roots. If it's too smooth, that don't happen. So that's why those sharp corners are very necessary.
Yeah, but why we split the roots?